Well, ballast water is essentially taken on board ships to maintain stability. A ship needs to be at a certain level in the water to prevent it from capsizing or breaking in half. So when a ship is fully loaded with cargo, it will have very little to no ballast water. When it's not fully loaded with cargo, it will take on ballast water to compensate. So an ocean freighter that comes into the Great Lakes, if it's not fully loaded with ballast water, or if it's not fully loaded with cargo, can carry up to 3 million gallons of ballast water. And this is ballast water taken on in ports from around the world and brought to the Great Lakes, and until recently discharged untreated. So you have to think of a ship taking on this ballast water in a port somewhere else, and it's essentially like a huge aquarium. This water is just teeming with aquatic life. They bring it to the Great Lakes, they discharge the ballast water when they take on cargo. The US and Canada passed rules in the early 1990s to require ships to exchange their ballast water in the North Atlantic Ocean before they came into the Great Lakes. The theory being that if you flush your tanks with ocean water, it'll purge all of those foreign species. And any ocean species that you might happen to take on would die in the fresh water of the Great Lakes anyway. So that was a good start with regulations. The problem was that the laws weren't enforced. And the big loophole was that 80 to 85% of the ships that come into the Great Lakes are fully loaded with cargo. So they only have this muddy slop, this residual in their ballast tanks. And so the Coast Guard issued a ruling that said, if you don't have pumpable amounts of ballast water in your tanks, you get a free pass. You don't have to do the ballast water exchange. You don't have to flush your tanks with seawater before coming into the Great Lakes. And that seemed okay, except that the average ocean ship that comes in with a full load of cargo and theoretically empty ballast tanks, on average has about 150 metric tons of muddy slop in their tanks. And that mud also contains lots of organisms. So let's say a ship comes into the Great Lakes fully loaded with steel, and it makes a stop in, say, Cleveland. It unloads steel, takes on ballast water in Lake Erie. That ballast water mixes with the mud that's in the tanks. They go to another Great Lakes port and they take on more cargo and they discharge that ballast water, which has been mixing with the mud. And this was a huge hole in the law, and a very serious one, because you know, in 1 year that was studied, these ships that were called no-bobs because of no ballast on board discharged about 950 million gallons of ballast water into the Great Lakes, untreated ballast water. So that was a loophole in the law, in the 1993 law, that remained in effect until 2008.